evening. I will call the meeting to order, and I will start by taking roll call of those present. Larry?
Here.
Jane?
Here.
Mary? Here. Ashley?
Here.
Jeannie?
Here.
And myself. Was the meeting properly noticed?
The meeting was properly noticed.
Wonderful. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And if we'll all stand and recite the,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Wonderful. Now we'll do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm so excited because our spotlight on learning tonight is Horizon School. We've got Lindsay Chandelia, our associate principal, and Pete Gull, our principal, with some of their staff here. So guys, come on down and share with us.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening. Come on up, guys. It's our first time doing this as a group. We're really excited to be here and take a few minutes of your time. We think we're doing some really good work, some new work for us that we're learning a lot about along the way. So in a really small amount of time, I think you're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to learn a lot from these folks, and I'll introduce them now. Vicki Linsmeyer represents our 5th grade team. Lindsay Krieger represents our 3rd grade team. Emily Wright represents the coaches and the interventionists. Behind me is Jenna Condon representing the 4th grade team, and Lindsay's going to get us started.
Sorry, I'm not as tall as Pete. So last year, the board had adopted our MTSS handbook, and so Horizon has really taken some steps forward in kind of procuring our process with the MTSS model. So if you take a look, this is just a reminder of what that MTSS model means. So we're going to give you a little bit of information on all of the tiers today. So tier 1, that's the school-wide universal model. And if you take a look, that's mostly performed by the classroom teacher. And then as we go up, last year when we came to the school board meeting, we had shared a little bit about tier 1.5. So we're continuing that and also adding some cool things to our process as well. So that's also performed by the classroom teacher. And then as you move up, we have tier 2, which is more targeted interventions, and then our tier 3, which is even more targeted and strategic interventions that we provide for our students. And those are mostly performed by our interventionists. But again, we want to share with you just our process that we're kind of perfecting, and also some of the things that we're adding just to make it more viable for a majority of our students, just to make sure that somewhere along those way we hit all of the students and provide them with what they need. So we're going to start with Pete on tier 1.
So you can't have a solid foundation without a really strong base, and that's how we see our tier 1 instruction. Sometimes we even call it tier 1 intervention. I think sometimes when people think about tier 1 or that universal instruction that everybody gets almost all the time, that sounds a lot like whole group instruction, and that is an element, but there are some other elements that we have listed there, including strategy groups and small groups, and sometimes even one-on-one support the classroom teachers are doing routinely with their students. So Lindsay and I this summer, as we were kind of rethinking how we were doing walkthroughs, both based on our need and what teachers were telling us through feedback, we decided to target that tier 1 intervention. So when we go into classrooms, we have a sheet. We mark the things that we see that are happening. There's also some space to ask some questions and to reinforce some of the things that really make that tier 1 really strong as we move in to more targeted interventions.
All right, I will start kind of talking about what 4th grade does for tier 1. So we have WIN, which stands for What I Need. During this time, 4th grade as a whole, on Mondays, we have a focusing on Math Mondays. So within the classroom, that could mean a lot of different things. This is students maybe working within different multiplication or division groups, as well as working on Dreambox. And this is really a focus for us. Especially in 4th grade, we want it to be an extension off of what students are already learning. As during this time, we have students pulled for other 1.5 groups or pulled for intervention. So within a classroom, we have students working at different levels as well. And then moving into Tuesdays, which is ELA Tuesday. So that would be anything language arts focused, from reading, writing, and spelling. So students can work in different spelling groups. They can work on writing and reading at this time. This also allows for us teachers to pull our own students during this time, students that are also not in those different groups, and kind of create our own strategy groups. And then on Wednesdays, we have current events. So this is often based on Scholastic. So we have different issues that we read on and touch. And then on Thursdays, it is Tech Thursdays. So often doing many different coding lessons along with Typing Pal lessons. And then on Fridays, it's based mostly on teacher choice. So this could mean pulling any different type of strategy groups that they want to focus on that week. Otherwise, on Fridays, it could be even building that classroom community if that's something that the teacher was wanting to focus on that week. But overall, that's kind of what we do and focus on every day of the week in 4th grade.
Thank you for having me. I think Horizon should be the spotlight every time, but that's just so Tier 1.5 seems kind of vague, so I thought I would give you a kind of an insight into one of the groups that I led last year to give you a little bit clearer vision. It started on a professional development day. We met as a literacy team for 5th grade. We look at data, F&P, STAR data, and then classroom data. And we identify students that are in need of something specific. At that point, we were looking at students who were having trouble with fluency, so we decided to run a fluency group. We picked about 5 or 6 students, and then they were going to meet with me for 6 weeks every single day for that win time, 30 minutes a day. So it starts with meeting with the interventionists, and with our learning coach. I met with them, decided what kind of quality research-based activities could I give these kids to help them move forward. Once we figured that out, the kids started meeting with me. We kind of set a routine where these kids would come. We would start the first 10 minutes. We've decided that we were going to work on multi-syllable words to help them with their fluency. So we started with about 10 minutes of multi-syllabic word practice, a lot of work hidden in almost like a game form. So for 10 minutes, we were doing a rather fast-paced game that we were playing around the table. Then each student would read to me individually from a level appropriate book so that I could get a feel for how they were doing. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes were discussions about what we had read, and also discussions about what we noticed about the words that we were working with. We did that every single day, and then on Friday, we would do a really short kind of exit ticket where they would work on some of the work that we had done with some of the words that we had done, and then that would help inform me of what I needed to do the next week. What I learned, students received just another hit of what I need, in a small group. They learn from each other, and they learn from another teacher, which I feel like can be really beneficial sometimes when a student is with the same teacher and they don't get something. Sometimes it's really nice for them to hear it from someone else, either another teacher or even their peers. Students made pretty significant improvements over 6 weeks, and I think it was that constant 30 minutes every day in a relatively small group. And they carry that learning over into their classroom and in just their reading in general. And then the other positive, teachers get to know other students in the building, and the students have another adult in the building that they've now spent every single day for 6 weeks with, and they're making connections. So that's kind of how my 6-week stint went.
So Tier 2 is the next level up, and it's an intervention with small group that has 3 to 5 students, and it's usually carried in by the intervention teacher. What we are doing now is that a classroom teacher is going to be trained, and I'm going to be one of them in November, where we're able to now meet with more kids and do a Tier 2 intervention, which is Guided Reading Plus. That's just one intervention that will be used to help all students. There's multiple that has been used, but this will help interventionists be able to serve across the district.
I'm going to be talking about the final tier, tier 3. Oops, there we go. Oops, sorry. There we go. So tier 3 intervention occurs 4 to 5 days a week for about 30 minutes a session. And because it is the highest tier, we have only 2 to 3 students, usually no more than 3 students in a group. And we work and use a variety of multisensory research-based interventions so that the instruction is individualized and intensive. Most tier 3 interventions occur during our win time, but due to scheduling, some interventions take place during tier 1 instruction. However, as an intervention team and with administration, we have decided to start piloting some before school interventions so that students are not pulled during that tier 1 instruction. And so that takes place from 8:10 to 8:35, and we were actually able to start that today. And it has been working so far on day 1. So we were really happy to be
sailing
able,
from here.
yeah, we were happy to be able to make that shift so that students are not missing tier 1 instruction.
So taking a look at the why do we do this? This is, John Hattie does a lot of research on effect sizes with learning. There's a whole list, and there's hundreds of them, so we just kind of zoned in on the top. So really taking a look at that top tier, that collective teacher efficacy, that idea that teachers can really move a group of students forward. If you look at the effect size of that at 1.57, knowing that anything above a 0.4 is a significant impact on student learning. This is kind of that collective teacher efficacy that you can see right in front of your eyes. So kind of starting with our PD day planning, and then it kind of rolls into what all of our tiers go through. It really is groups of teachers that are really collectively supporting all the students in that grade level. And then also if you take a look at the third one down, that response to intervention, that's really what this is also. And so looking at the effect size of 0.129, we definitely have a lot of research behind us that supports our work and shows us that we can really support all of our kids at Horizon. And lastly, we're not done, obviously. So some of our next steps, with MTSS, that really is that umbrella. So it's academic with behavioral. So that's kind of our next step. We have some really good supports in place for our tier 1 with behavior. Teachers do a really nice job of sharing with students the expectations and kind of practicing those expectations. But we also know that we have some room to grow in our tier 1.5 and tier 2 behavioral support. So that's kind of one of our next steps. Some other work that we want to keep doing is in tier 1. We know that classroom discussion can have a really big impact as well. So kind of beefing up that tier 1 and continuing to work on that is some of our future work. And then also just resources. We want to be resource rich so that we can ensure that we hit students wherever they need it and we have something to support them. So those are kind of our next steps and what we're working on. So any questions that you guys have for me or for anybody behind me about our MTSS process?
I have a few questions. I have a few questions, or maybe one. Could you this program, you're talking about it in 2 different lines of action. So one is academic and one is behavioral.
Correct.
Would that be correct to say the behavioral is disciplinary?
No, not disciplinary. It's more proactive support, so supporting students within the classroom. It's more of that that social lens, like supporting them socially, but also behaviorally if need be, just having those extra proactive supports.
Self-discipline type things.
Potentially,
Okay.
yeah.
That kind of behavior.
Could
Okay.
be also like building a sense of community, a sense of belonging.
Well, why
various
would you,
aspects.
on the basis of behavior, why would you be pulled into tier 1, just so I understand what you're saying?
Well, tier 1 is what everybody gets.
Tier 2?
Tier 2 could mean if there's a student that, like I said, maybe is having a hard time connecting with friends or is having a hard time making friendships. We
Okay.
might pull them into a small social group to kind of support that.
Okay. And my other question is, how does this tie into social emotional learning or,
Well, I think that's kind of, we talk about MTSS, that's really that umbrella, right? So we talk about the academic and also the social side of it. So again, it's based on what the student needs at the time. So whatever the student needs is kind of whatever tier they end up in.
what does social emotional learning look like in the elementary school aside this program, or are they interchangeable?
I'm not sure what you're asking, sorry.
Well, a couple of times when folks have been here, they have used the term social emotional learning in presentations like this. And now that you're here and I got you captive, I don't understand what they're saying when they say it, how that fits into the curriculum, what they're doing with it. So when a child comes in 7:30, 8:30 in the morning and is going through social emotional learning and this, what does that look like? What is social emotional learning?
So
It's been used a lot.
we haven't piloted any behavioral interventions for in the morning, that's just academic. So at 8:10.
I mean, all day long, from 8:30 on to the time that they leave. What does this, is there no connection between this and social emotional learning?
I mean, I think it's all, I mean, like I said, MTSS is that umbrella, so it's everything. It's everything that's combined in there. So again, whatever the data or whatever is telling us that the students need, whether it's classroom observations that teachers are making, or if there's any behavioral things, whatever that data is supporting, that's kind of where we head in that direction with
Yeah, and I would
students.
just kind of interject. So when you think about that tier, whenever they talk about tier one, that's everybody. So we do have some formalized social emotional programs, like we use something called Character Strong at Asa Clark, for example. So that'd be an example of a tier one social emotional learning program that's designed to speak to things like character and peer relationships and those kinds of things that everybody's trying to develop. And then when they talk in terms of the multi-system of support model, which they're describing today, although they've been speaking to the academic side, similarly, it's trying to give, you know, what I need, right? What kids need. So a tier down, you know, in terms of more intense intervention could be working with a counselor or something on developing some specific skill sets. Might be a small group, just like you pull small groups for academics. You might work on a small group, and all that does kind of generally fit under that term of social emotional learning.
Thank you, Mike. Is
Yeah,
there a
sure.
different set of tools or resources that you're using for social emotional learning in the other schools?
So I can,
ahead,
just
Danielle.
because the counseling program or counseling curriculum uses a variety of different resources. So right now, the counseling curriculum is under review, so those resources are all being reviewed right now. So at the elementary level, it's a variety of different resources. They don't have one particular one like the middle school does, has Character Strong. They don't use one particular one right now and stuff, and they're actually just starting that review process to identify if there is a resource that they want to lean into more or not and stuff. So that would be something that will come to the board once that process is complete.
Same with the high school?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can punt this one. This is my last one. The human growth and development curriculum, does that just lay on top of this, or where does that come in?
So I can respond to that. Yeah, so
Thank you.
human growth and development at Horizon is in 4th and 5th grade. It's just a couple of lessons, 2 lessons that happen with our nurse and our health instructor from the high school that comes. So classroom teachers are not involved in delivering those lessons and stuff. It's just a couple of lessons that happen in 4th and in 5th grade. And at the next meeting, board meeting actually, because we'll have our first committee meeting this Friday, we'll be providing an update, and in that update presentation shows that curriculum and exactly how many lessons it is.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. You guys didn't want a table to sit at.
I have a question real quick. What period is win time? And all grades have win time, right? Is it every day?
Yeah, it is every day.
Okay.
It's a half an hour of time. Our 3rd grade has it split, so they do it, upstairs does it at a different time than downstairs, and
Okay.
then 4th and 5th grade, they do theirs they do theirs collectively at the same time. I mean, like, all of 4th grade does it at one time and all of 5th grade does it. The rationale for it is kind of, we know with our interventionists that that's kind of a sacred time. So that way, when we schedule for our interventionists to support, that they know that 5th grade needs the supports at this time during their win time, and that's kind of why we schedule it that way.
Oh, that makes sense. And then your pilot program for your tier 2 or tier, at 8:10 in the morning. How do the kids get there?
That's part of the barriers that we talk about with
Okay.
parents. A lot of them are drop off in the morning. So we connect with parents to make sure it's something that they're interested in, something that that their student is able to do. I know not everybody's a morning person, but we start breakfast at 8:15. So we
Yeah.
let students in the building for that purpose. So we thought if this is a way that we can support students, they don't get pulled out of tier one, that would really benefit them too.
I like it.
So,
I like it. Thanks.
Yeah. And again, day one went well. So
Yeah.
we'll keep you posted.
One down.
I'll have to ask later how the rest go. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, I'd really like the focus on the 1.5, because that's the whole idea, right? To catch them as early as possible if they're having some level of struggle. So I really appreciate how you guys are using that. Can you just give me just a little bit more? I know we're using multiple sources of data, but just a little bit in terms of how you're identifying that group, because obviously you have, benchmarks, and you're using classroom grades, right? You're using STAR data and other sources. So what tends to be that cutoff for 1.5? Just give me a little bit more on that.
Yeah, usually we try to stick to the 20th percentile and above, knowing that our interventionists do a lot of servicing of students beneath the 24th percentile. Again, I hate to say it, but it's all based on scheduling. So if we have a situation where we have a student or a group of students at that 23rd percentile and they don't have access to an interventionist, then it would be geared towards that student. So it's all data dependent. Moving into our first PD day, that's kind of what we'll be looking at is we're getting all our data in now. We're doing STAR testing for math right now, so we'll take a look at that and kind of be strategic on where students fall and what grouping they work with during that win time.
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting tonight. I know that Pete and Lindsay know that I always say my favorite school is Horizon.
Ours
And-
too.
Yeah. And maybe that's because all of my volunteer work has been done there. And Lindsay, I had the privilege of spending 1 year working in her classroom. So many sweet memories from that time with her and her kids and just seeing them learn. And I just want to say a super huge thank you to everyone on your team in Horizon School. I've seen them in action. They're great educators. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before you run off to catch the Packer game, there are some gifts for you. And then you can go Pack, go, despite what Dylan would say.
I know exactly.
Although he's rooting for the Packers tonight.
Tonight, I don't like the Raiders.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Right. Okay, next we have our student board representative report. Dylan and Natalie, you're up.
Thank you. All right, so October, it's here. First, we wanted to talk about our homecoming, which the theme for that was fairy tale. So we had a number of dress-up days, which we couldn't get pictures for from the Insight program in time. But I mean, there was district-wide participation. We saw kids in PLE, Horizon, ASA, and obviously the high school dressing up for all the days and at the parade and everything at the game. But then also with homecoming came Penny Wars for Heal. This is a new beginning for refugees, raising money for families and groups in Afghanistan or Ukraine and a couple of Afghan families. I know I have a friend who's hosting one, fleeing from the Taliban to be able to come here to a safe place and kind of find a new home.
All right, so our second topic of discussion is the Horizon and PLE STEAM Night that happened just this last week. I had the pleasure of volunteering there, so I was able to talk to some people about it. But basically, the whole purpose of the night was to promote different educational STEAM activities, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. There were multiple different activities geared toward elementary students and their families, such as wildlife bridges. They were able to build marble mazes, make paper planes, and there was also a guest under the pseudonym of Dr. Drizzle, who is a storybook author and scientist who comes around to different schools around the nation. And she writes stories, obviously she's an author, geared towards science and things, so she was able to be there and talk to students and families. And then I just talked to a PHS Hook student who was covering the night, and he said, I think it was cool to see Horizon and Peely kids mingle and play at STEAM night. It was also educational and really emphasized the meaning. It was a great night, big turnout. I was there for a while. It was way busier than I thought it was going to be, so it was really great.
And then we kind of just wanted to touch on our athletics and activities. So for this season, a lot of golf stuff. The girls' golf team has been shattering records the whole season, so I'm going to list them off here. They broke the school record for lowest 18-hole round as a team at 363 strokes, broke the school record for most mini-meets won, 8 out of 10 on the season. Roe Longden broke the school record for the lowest 18-hole round. They scored 77. They are also state-bound this season. The team won the conference this season, won the Wood League Conference. Roe Longden, like I said, took first place in that conference tournament with Kylie Clark was following her up in 5th. We also had a couple other conference winners. It's not just girls golf. We also had our girls volleyball team, boys soccer team, and girls tennis all win conference. Boys soccer just had a game tonight.
They're
Do you know how
down.
that went?
They're down 1-0 at half in the Woodland Conference crossover game at Shorewood.
Okay,
Not that
I mean,
I
that's,
focused on that.
and then our guys got the 5th seed. It's the 5th seed, right,
Yep.
for the playoffs? The
They
state
play Milwaukee
playoffs.
Riverside next Tuesday in their first regional game.
And then we also wanted to touch on Hope Chain, which was a Hope Squad activity that they did to support Suicide Awareness Month and kind of spread awareness for that and help act against it.
And then I'm also just going to touch on that real quick. So I just wanted to throw that in there, not only touching on our sports, but also Hope Squad. So it was just a really great activity for the high school to promote positivity. So we had kids come up during their lunch periods and write down positive messages, which we added to the chain. It's not a very great picture, but you can kind of see that. And it was just a great turnout. We're able to hang it. It's downstairs if you want to take a look at it. It's a great way to promote positivity.
And then finally, we just had our salutes and recognitions.
Yep. So, okay.
There we go.
So, just a couple salutes and recognitions. Mrs. Rooney, she led our STEAM night at Horizon and PLE. The PHS Student Senate for organizing homecoming and taking charge with our hallway decorations. That turned out really nice this year. Mrs. Sevens, Miss Flynn, and Mrs. Gurman, kind of our heads for homecoming, with the dance and everything that goes on with that. Student volunteers who stayed after the dance to help clean up and kind of help take down decorations in the hallways. And then a huge shout out to our National Merit seniors who took the PSAT. Matt Davis, Von Strozen, and Lane Sun all received national recognition and commendation and made the top 34,000 in the nation. And then Kellen Klein and our very own Dylan Barrow, 2 National Merit semifinalists at Pewaukee this year.
Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Dylan.
Dylan didn't want to share because he was too embarrassed, but I was like, we need to share this.
I would have got him if you didn't.
All right, so that's it for our student report. If you guys have any questions.
I just didn't know Lions fans were that smart.
Oh.
Every once in a blue moon. All right,
Sure,
there's
they're
no
looking
next.
pretty smart.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, there's a thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Great
Great report,
report.
you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Comments from citizens. Julie, do we have any? No. Awesome. Thank you. Next, we'll go to salutes and recognitions. I want to start out by saying what a blast I thought the homecoming parade was. I don't know if the other 3 of you had as much fun as I did, but one of my salutes I want to give to Jane, just for, providing your golf cart. Man, what a sweet ride, right? I thought we were one of the cutest rides in the whole parade. Thank you for that. And then also to Julie and Miranda, who decorated our sweet little ride and just made us look great. So thank you guys for all the work you did.
Yeah, I'm
Or
still
did-
finding streamers. everywhere. Yeah, they're like,
Did-
they're wrapped around everything.
Did you successfully follow the specific instructions related to the operation of the golf cart?
I did, and
Nice.
yeah, and I was told that we can use it again.
All right.
Okay, all right.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I think it's been
Oh,
Go ahead.
already stated, but just from the board level and the fact that you are a student rep from the board or on the board, we need to acknowledge, thank you for your contributions, but your recognition as a national
National merit
merit.
semifinals.
National Merit Semifinals.
So
Very
another shout out
prestigious.
to Dylan.
Yes.
That makes you in the, I think, what, like the top 16,000 in the nation out of like, what, 1.6 million, something like that?
I believe it's that 1.6.
And then you
Hopefully I
find
get
out,
finalists.
and then you find out about finalists in, what, a couple months, maybe?
I think it's a couple months. I mean, the essay is due Wednesday. And then it's a couple months after that I'll find out if I'm a semifinalist, which is 8,000.
And what's the payoff or what's the payout on that?
It depends on like what I want to do for college. Some places I could just get like a full tuition scholarship. And others it's just like more of an added on scholarship, just something complimentary.
And it doesn't look too shabby on a
No.
college, on a college application.
It's going in as one of the honors, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that. And then I did also just want to back up what we kind of touched on in the presentation, the student volunteers in Senate, because the hallways this year looked really good. I don't remember them looking quite that good last year, but they really took a leap forward this year.
Spirit there.
I have just a couple, I just wanted to reemphasize Colleen Rooney. Thank you guys for identifying her. That's STEAM night. So I just want to kind of emphasize that, you know, when we send our staff to different conferences and different learning opportunities, you know, the question is always like, what do they bring back? And Colleen, for the last 2 summers, has done a professional learning opportunity called STEAM in the Park, where she has gone to national parks. And so Dr. Drizzle, the pseudonym name, her and her husband are the ones that lead this STEAM in the Park, and Colleen has been so energized by that work and has come back and implemented so many ideas. Like every year she comes back with this massive slideshow that she shares with me of all the things she's gonna implement. And then this year she came and did that STEAM night. So to see over 250 families engaged in that, right? Just of such a direct connection from the learning and the passion she has to really impacting our students' experience and our families' experience. So I just want a huge shout out to Colleen, and she did it, and she was quite ill during the entire time she did it, and she muscled through it all. And then I just want to give a shout out to Randy Staus and Nelson Brownell, our soccer coaches and stuff. Again, quite biased about our boys soccer team, but first Woodland Conference championship in 5 years, and so proud parent, proud pirate.
Right, then I got a couple here. At your seats, you all have a nice little gift there. So I want to begin my salutes by recognizing the 6 of you, and Stacy, hello in Vegas. Go Packers. For the, you know, people that don't sit in your seats don't realize what a commitment it is to be a school board member. It is, I know you're all very passionate about doing it, but it's a lot of time. It is a major commitment. You know, we recognize that and appreciate all of you. And, you know, this small gift is a token of our appreciation for everything that you do. So thank you to all of you as board members. And then lastly, we have one other group. It is Food Service Appreciation. I'm not sure if it's week or day. It should be week if it's only a day. It should be all week. But we did go around, and it was very popular last year. It was Julie's idea to go crumble cookies last year, and the crumble cookies were delivered today, and our food service staff was very appreciative of that. But they do a really great job. It's often a thankless job, feeding our students and greeting them with a smile each and every day. And to Clayton, who does such a good job managing our food service program. So I want to take this opportunity to recognize our wonderful food service staff.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. I just want to point out some gifts we received. The Mays Foundation donated $2,000 to the Pewaukee High School Aviation Program, and $1,000 each was received from Jerry's Automotive and from Caliber Collision to the Pewaukee High School Robotics Program. So thank you to those organizations with their generous donations. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, thank you. Next, we go on to the Business Affairs Committee, which met tonight, and Jane, I'll let you report out on that.
Yep, so we had our Business Affairs Committee. We reviewed, the financial report for September, along with the check registers for the month. Revenues are at 3%, which is normal, and expenses are at 17.7%. We also wanted to note that this is the last month for working on our preliminary budget, so next month we'll be working off of the final budget. And then we also had reports regarding the debt service report, transportation update, and short-term borrowing discussion. With that, I would like to move to accept the Business Affairs report.
Move to accept the Business Affairs report.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. All right, on to new business. Well, we are privileged tonight to have Joe Donovan and Perry Hibner here from the Donovan Group. And they are the ones that have been charged with working on our survey deployment for our master facilities planning. Mike?
Yeah, so we're gonna show a quick video. We have, the primary objective tonight, and Joe and Perry are here to walk you through the draft survey to see if you have any feedback. I did have a couple of questions from Jane, caught something that was off in terms of referencing roofing projects at Pewaukee High School, which this does not include roofing projects at Pewaukee High School, but in other buildings, so we cleaned that up in the survey. Jane also had a question about, it mentioned our foods program and culinary program, and I did talk about that. Part of that plan with Career Tech Ed includes upgrades to the existing culinary program into a commercial oriented kitchen versus where it's currently situated, and that's really more about equipment. So those, I think, were the questions that you had, Jane. So I'm going to ask Perry and Joe to come and walk us through the survey. Before they do that, we're going to show a quick video. Miranda's done a great job kind of working with the Donovan Group and putting this together. We thought it would be a little bit more of a personal touch as we send this out to the community to have a little voice and explanation to it. So the postcard that is ready to go from the post office with the QR codes includes a link to this video, and then it asks people to complete the survey. So we thought we'd share this short video with you, and then we'll go to Joe and Perry.
Hello, Pewaukee School District community. This is Mike Cady, Superintendent of the Pewaukee School District, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to fill out a survey to provide the Board of Education and our district leadership team direction as we analyze some important projects. Hello, Pewaukee School District community. This is Mike Cady, Superintendent of the Pewaukee School District, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to fill out a survey to provide the Board of Education and our district leadership team direction as we analyze some important projects we're considering for facilities in the school district, including a space like I'm standing in today. The Pewaukee School District has a well-established history of using strategic planning approaches to identify our needs and to engage our community to provide us feedback. So this began last December in terms of our facilities when the board received its annual report on long-range facility needs. This was followed then by a session in April in which we invited in 60 stakeholders from our community to provide input and feedback on a number of the projects that we are considering for the school district. Then was followed in May when about 80 stakeholders came in for our annual strategic planning process and again provided us some direction and some input on how they would like to see us move forward with providing facilities that meet the needs of all of our students. All right, ranging from the projects identified in the plan presented to the board in December, those items that we identified.
Again, we spent that time in April with the community and ultimately hired Epstein Ewan and C.G. Schmidt to help us get a little further along in our planning and brought in the Donovan Group to facilitate this survey process, which is going to be critical so that we really understand what our broader community thinks. So we're going to give it another go with the video. Give that another try, see if it likes me.
Hello, Pewaukee School District community. This is Mike Cady, Superintendent of the Pewaukee School District, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to fill out a survey to provide the Board of Education and our district leadership team direction as we analyze some important projects we're considering for facilities in the school district, including a space like I'm standing in today. The Pewaukee School District has a well-established history of using strategic planning approaches to identify our needs and to engage our community to provide us feedback. So this began last December in terms of our facilities when the board received its annual report on long-range facility needs. This was followed then by a session in April in which we invited in 60 stakeholders from our community to provide input and feedback on a number of the projects that we are considering for the school district. Then was followed in May when about 80 stakeholders came in for our annual strategic planning process and again provided us some direction and some input on how they would like to see us move forward with providing facilities that meet the needs of all of our students. All right, ranging from the projects identified in the plan presented to the board in December, those items that we identified with our community in April and again in May include a number of things that I want to make you aware of and is what's being measured by this survey. We have some sustained maintenance projects that we know we have to address. This includes a couple of roofing projects. Substantial sections at Pewaukee Lake Elementary need roof replacements, and really most of the roofs, with the exception of the new gym space, need to be replaced in the next couple of years at Horizon Elementary. In addition, we have a couple of air handling units at Pewaukee High School that we know need to be replaced. And through the recent Inflation Reduction Act that was passed at the federal level, we know we have some opportunities to save the district substantial money with the installation of something like a solar array, which would provide long-term sustainable savings for the district. In addition to those kinds of projects, we recognize that we have spaces that are in need of some attention, including our career and tech ed spaces, like I'm standing in our metals shop today. This space has been largely untouched since the high school was constructed in 1968. We also have our art classrooms that are undersized and could use some enhancements and improvements so that we better align with our curriculum and the learning opportunities that we know that we want for our students. Lastly, some opportunities on our single campus that were identified so that we can maximize this single campus that we know is so important to our community. Includes a multi-purpose facility that would address physical education, fitness, athletics, and really all kinds of curricular programs, not to mention the community access to our spaces that are always in such demand. So in closing, this survey is designed to provide our Board of Education and our leadership team critical feedback from you, our community, as to what it is that you would like to see done with your schools. So thank you so much for taking the time to provide that direction so that we are empowered to make good decisions as stewards of these facilities.
To be with you tonight. Again, my name is Joe Donovan, and I'm the founding partner of the Donovan Group. And Dr. Katie's right. Last time I was with you was 2018. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I was with you back then for a similar purpose. And so I appreciate very much for the opportunity to be with you again. Perry's going to go through the details of the survey in a moment, but before he does that, I wanted to let you know, or maybe remind some of you, the Donovan Group is a firm that does communications and community engagement. And throughout our history, we have done surveys as a very effective and efficient way of collecting information, providing information to community members, and gathering information from community members. Part of our role is to be very transparent, to put as much information as we can out there. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you again today. So with that, I'll turn things over to my colleague, Perry Hibner. Perry?
Feel free to take a photo, Joe, if you want. So you can probably use it on social media at some point. Good evening. I will just point out, I wasn't here in 2018. I was actually working in Middleton Cross Plains doing a referendum at that time, as Dr. Katie and I talked about last week when I was here for a meeting. So, Dylan, I want to congratulate you on the National Merit semifinalist. I think you'll find out in early February, the next step, and then there are other ones after that. I remember I'd get excited each year when in Middleton, because I was the communications director for a decade, when we'd find out about our students there. So, and then the other thing, I was going to give you grief about the Lions jersey, but I see that the superintendent's already done it, so I will
Check
not
that
do
off the
that.
list.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for having me here tonight. What I thought I would do first, we'll go through a few slides in a bit, but I thought I'd go just through the survey, because I realized it was sent to all of you ahead of time, paper copies, which are going to be available for anybody who wants to do it. I will tell you that 90 to 95% of your community that completes the survey will do it online. And that's what we find with every survey that we do. But again, it is important to have paper copies available for anybody who maybe doesn't feel comfortable doing a survey online or just wants to have that hard copy in their hands when they do it. So the way the survey opened up, we provided a little bit of background information first. I know you've seen it and stuff. Again, letting them know when the survey closes, that's really important. The last thing we want is somebody to say, I didn't know that it closed on such and such a date when we're doing it. So again, they'll have 2 weeks approximately to complete it, and then I'll turn around and do a report really quickly, and then we'll be here in November, Joe and I will, to go through the results with you. So first of all, we open up with a series of demographic questions, and we do that with every district. One thing I will point out here, and I told the core team last week when we met with them, is that these are the same questions that were on the 2018 survey along with the same options, because I felt that was really important. The last thing we wanted to do was have people see different options or different questions in terms of demographics this time around in your community, because a lot of those folks who took it in 2018 will take it again this time. So those, again, for those of you who were around then, will recognize those questions. Those are really valuable for us as well, especially the one where it says, please select all the following that apply to you, and it's things like school-age children, preschool-age children, so on and so forth. That's why that is so important, is when we break down the data and come back in November, we're going to give you, and I'll show it in the slides, 3 groups to look at. One is all responses. And I will tell you right now, typically when we do community surveys, or in this case, a community facility survey, you're going to find that your all response is going to be your highest percentage. So it can be a little misleading. And what I told my grandson today when I was babysitting him is, it's like the story of the 3 bears. I would say that is, there's porridge that's too hot, too cold, or just right. So, and I would say that is probably too hot. That looks really good, and you might be inclined to say, wow, we're in really good shape. But the problem is, all respondents on most surveys, the majority of people who take this survey, just like in most school districts, are going to be your families. And they're going to be the ones who probably are most likely to support any option you put out there. Even if you put out a $100 million option, and I'm not trying to say that you're doing that, but I'm just saying that they want what's best for their kids, and they're going to say, we'll support whatever it is you're going to do. Then there's going to be a comparison group, and those are going to be residents who don't have a direct affiliation with your school. So they don't have kids in the school, they don't work for the district, and they might have grandchildren here, they might not. And again, that's going to be the cold porridge, because that's going to be, you might look at those numbers and go, well, we'd have a hard time getting any referendum passed. And what I will remind you is, in almost every community, between 65 and 75% of all eligible voters don't have a direct affiliation with the district. So what we have done the last couple of years now, and this is different from 2018, is we do a weighted number. And that is the porridge that's just right, is what I told Carson. And what that means is we give a 30% weight to people who have a direct affiliation with you and a 70% weight to that comparison group. And the reality is when I show you these slides, you're going to see that a lot of the results, while it's not a scientific polling, it is a convenience sample. The results we've seen by doing that weighting tends to be very close to the results districts have seen when they go to referendum on their election results. You're going to have to decide which results you want to look at, but I wanted to make sure you understood why we give you 3 sets of them. Okay? So we go through, and again, Then we get to how satisfied are you with the Pewaukee School District? And again, these are things you've seen before, but this is really important. I will tell you that this sort of sets a ceiling for any results we see later, and here's why. In districts, districts we've worked with where they have, let's say, 50 or 55% satisfaction levels, they're not going to see 50 or 55% support for any referendum options that are out there. What we're looking for is probably 70% higher, and that's what I would expect to see here in Pewaukee. Okay? And that gives us a good, if you will, starting point in terms of when we put options out there for the community to say what they'd be willing to support. Then then there's some questions in terms of how you get your information. What I told Miranda last week is that's really valuable because I can guarantee you, and I did her job for a long time in Middleton, I can guarantee you the way that your families get their information is a lot different from the way that maybe residents who don't have children in the schools get their information. So what that means is over the next few months is when you make a determination about how to move forward, and then you go out to engage your community further, you're going to want to use different communication tools depending on the audience you're trying to reach. And that will be really valuable. And it will help you fine-tune those messages depending on the audiences you're going for. Then we provide a narrative. And one of the things that's important with the narrative and with the number of questions or statements we include is that we don't go too long. You may have noticed at the beginning, and I'm curious for those of you who took the survey, how long it took you to do it. When I did it, it took me about 11 minutes, even though we put 10 to 15 on the front page. And the reason why is we want to keep most surveys under 12 because nationally there's a huge drop-off in completion percentages once you get past 12 minutes. So that's our goal. So if it took you more than 12, I'm really curious because I think we then need to look at, do we need to maybe take out one or two things? I'm not suggesting we do that because I think you were less than that. But if somebody was longer than 12, I'd like to know. And then I told Mike, I really like having this question, how familiar are you with the Pewaukee School District's identified facility needs? Because I think what we're going to find, as much as you've done a lot of work engaging your community, you talked about your long-range facility plan, you talked about, the efforts you made in April and May to bring people in, the tours and everything else. My guess is we're going to find 15 to 30% of people who don't have any knowledge about what your district needs are. And I would tell you that presents a real opportunity over those next few months because they're probably not going to say they, at this point, strongly support an option, maybe not even probably support it. And while we can't use words like, let's go out and we want you to support this referendum, we're not allowed to do that. The reality is those people can be turned from somebody who's maybe not sure on the fence or maybe even slightly no to being a supporter by the time the election rolls around. Because again, they don't know what they don't know at this point, and it's our job then to help inform them, help them make them understand why this is a need. Joe used to talk about with me, we hired him in 2012 in Middleton. We hadn't passed a referendum in more than a decade. And I had just joined the district, and we talked about, his process is identify your needs, explain again the process you used to get to this point, and then go out and explain why this is the right solution that was picked. And the survey is part of that process. Okay? And then I believe the district's facility needs must be addressed now. Again, I can assure you that whatever percentage we get there, let's say it's 70%, we probably won't quite get 70% for any of the options because no one's seen the dollar amounts yet. But again, we want to start with a high percentage here because if you're not at a high percentage, it's really hard to have a high percentage when people see options and tax impact. Then we go into those projects that the district plans to do and has incorporated the dollar amounts. I think it's around $6 million or so with any capital maintenance projects in the solar and energy initiative. And we just wanted to give that information to people so they understand, as Joe talked about, we want to be completely transparent about what it is the plans are going forward. And then we go into the two projects. Project number one, the STEAM Innovation Hub. And then when Mike and I and the team were talking last week, we felt it was important to have a question just asking about that. Again, people still don't know about dollar amounts or anything, but just are they supportive? And here's why I think that's a really important question to ask, just like the same thing with the multi-purpose facility. If we find out after the survey closes that let's say 80% of your community really supports CTE, but only 40% supports a multi-purpose facility, it may result in a different conversation for all of you about how to move forward. It may be that we have the dollars we need to do whatever we want, but this will help maybe guide you a little bit. So I think that's an important thing for us to find out, and we will disaggregate the data to make sure you know. Same thing then for the multi-use purpose facility. give them a little bit of background, and then ask how you feel about if the district was to move forward with that. Okay? Then EUA put together a graphic, and again, I'm a big fan of visuals in a survey because not everybody likes to read when they go through this, and it helps break up the copy a little bit. But it shows in a very general sense the scope of each of the three areas of the scope type, and then what's included in each of the $3 amounts that we're gonna survey on. And then we put the questions out there for you to find out. I would vote yes on a $24 million capital referendum, and it talks about, modernization of the CTE spaces and the tax impact. And there will be some people who will read that and go right away to the tax impact because that's all they want to know about. And then for $42 million, it talks about what you get more for that. It goes into a little bit more detail than that chart did. And same thing for $48 million. And then we give an opportunity for people to give an open-ended question. It's not required, but they can tell us exactly what they think. And trust me, people will. You found that out in 18, you'll find it out again. There will be people who will be really supportive of this. There will be people who won't be. And that's the reality of any school district community survey. So with that, I want to show you a little bit about, and this is kind of a precursor to what's going to happen in November. Oh, clicked it, it went too far. Okay, so what I did was I pulled out, and these, obviously I took out the names of the districts and stuff, but I did pulled out four community surveys we've done. We've done about 30 over the last 2 years. Okay? Yeah, Mike.
Could I, you're not gonna get picked up on the live stream if I don't have you in the
Sorry.
microphone.
I used to like to walk around a lot.
I know.
I'd have a
That's
microphone
the
on
one
me when I'd
problem,
be
yeah.
on TV, so
Otherwise
it's a
I
little
won't hear
easier,
you
so.
on the screen.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks, Mike, for reminding me.
Yep.
So what I was saying, in case it wasn't caught before, for those of you watching or streaming later, is we've done about, the Donovan Group has done about 30 community surveys over the last couple of years. I pulled out 4 for us to look at tonight. So with this one, and again, this shows you the 3 different categories we use, and then at the bottom it talks about combined, definitely, probably, because again, as board members, you're going to want to know that. So this district knew that they could do a $18 million capital referendum showing the tax impact, and they had pretty good support. I'll tell you, it was a state where they had to get 60% support in order to pass a referendum. So, and then they also wanted to put on some upgrades, and I'll go back to the weighted group just for a second on the first one. There, I'm sorry, because I hit it twice, that's why it went on. So this was the main part. It was about building a new middle school. And they had 66% support in the weighted one. You can see comparison lower, all higher. And that's why I say the weighted one, I think, is the right porridge. Then they had a couple other things they wanted to do. They wanted to do some capital referendum projects, including roofing. Or the third part was roofing. You can see both of those, the weighteds were slightly above 70. Now, I will tell you that district, when they went to referendum in May of this year, it passed with 65%. So if you go back to that first question, 66 to 65, I would never say our surveys are predictive since they're not scientific. But again, the results were pretty close to being accurate to what we saw. Second district, all right? And this one's a little different because I want to show you they had different options. Now, I told Mike we could put 3, option 1, option 2, option 3 there if it makes it clearer and easier for you when we come back in November. That's how this district did it. This is not a state that needed 60%. So they knew that they had quite a bit of wiggle room when you see 18.4. Then they put a second option out there of 22. You can see, look at it dropped by 6%, but still quite high. And even option 3, and Larry, this goes back to something you were asking Joe and myself before the meeting. You see, this is a rare case where the most expensive option got more support than the second option. And what I will tell you is that your families may say, we want 48 million. And in fact, if your community says no, one of the discussions you're going to have with your district families is maybe why you ended up going with 41. Because they may feel like, let's do it all now, but if the data doesn't support it, we have to make sure our families understand why not. I had to do that in Middleton a couple of times. Okay? The third one, all right, and this was in Minnesota, and they, again, only needed 50% support. If I had showed you a different question we asked, it was below 50%. But the community said, if you're able to get some additional money so that our tax impact goes down, we'll support it. Oh, by that way, that second one passed with 60%. This one passed, even though it said 56.82, with 55%. So again, within a couple of percentage points. And then the last one, and this was here in Wisconsin. It actually went to referendum last year. And I will tell you again, so they asked $2, $4, and $6 million capital questions. The only one that had more than 50% support was $2 million. When it got to $4 million, it went quite a bit below, it went just below 50%. And when it got to 6 million, it went quite higher. It's a K-8 district in the state. So this is the one that the numbers were most off. They passed it with 55% support, but let me tell you two things. And this is something you'll have to think about too. They didn't go with 2 million. They went with 2.5 million because they thought we have so much support at 2 million. We think we can get more than 2 million and address a few more of our needs. But the other thing, and I think this is another reason why they saw a 10 percentage point drop, is they decided to put an operational referendum on the ballot. And so that ended up impacting their total support as well. So this is what the kind of stuff we'll bring forward here in November, but I want to kind of to give you a little taste test of it, and then also explain how those results ended up actually looking. So with that, and I promised Julie I would stay under 20 minutes because that's all the time I was given, and I think I did it with about 2 minutes to spare. But I'm sure there's questions, so I'll just open it up for people who have questions, and I'll do the best I can to answer all of them.
Well done, thanks.
Or
Barry.
Joe can.
Questions?
So let's say we get a good result and we decide to move forward and we start doing focus groups. Does Donovan Group stay involved with us at that point, or are you strictly part of the survey procurement?
Thank you for that. So for this project, we're helping just with the survey, but I think as Dr. Katie would say, we help on an ongoing basis even after the project is done. That's what it means to serve public school districts. So we're not going anywhere. We work with districts all over the country. The good news is that Perry and I live here in Wisconsin. I just live down the road.
Move to adopt the survey.
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Pass 7-0.
6.
Sorry, 6-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks,
Look forward
Barry.
to coming
you
back
so
in
much.
November.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Talk soon, thank you.
All right. Our next topic of discussion is Start College Now, early college credit applications. And we're going to let Danielle speak to that.
Yeah, so you see the attached memo and applications. So this is something that you see each semester. State statute allows students to take credits at universities or technical colleges through the Start College Now or Early College Credit Program. And so the applications for spring semester are due by October 1st, and then we need to act upon them by October 15th. So those are presented to you tonight. So I did have a couple of questions from Jane over the weekend, so thank you, Jane, for those. Just a couple of points of clarification. Jane had asked, if the total cost that was listed in the memo, is that all on PSD, or is there some DPI reimbursement? There is some DPI or state reimbursement for some of those. I listed the total maximum cost just so that we had a full sense of the picture, but DPI does reimburse based on if it's a early college credit, if it's at a private university. It also ultimately depends on which courses students choose. As you saw, many of them apply for a few different ones, but will only take one or two. But they have alternates so that they don't have to come back in case there's a schedule conflict to us. And so I just took the maximum cost just so that you could see that full picture. But the actual cost will be less than what you see there. We did have a couple of students who were in the UW Academy program that UW Milwaukee at Waukesha had started this year. They informed us a couple of weeks into the school year that they're not continuing that program in second semester due to low enrollment. So our students have to sort of scramble to find other alternatives. So that was a little frustrating for us to experience, but I think there's some good options for the students there. We do, you do see a variation of costs for the courses. Students do have the ability to apply at any university by state statute that they are interested in attending. Again, reimbursement levels vary based on which program that is and stuff, but those were some of the questions that Jane had, but I would be happy to answer any other questions people have.
Thanks, Danielle. I have just one question. CLEP. college level college level examination program. As I understand it, if you step into a college course, you are prohibited from taking that entire span of options for credit. Are parents notified of that? Are students notified that they are blocked out of 16 credits worth of college through the college level examination program by going and doing this?
In reference to like world language courses, or I'm not entirely sure on your question.
College level examination program covers everything. So I went into college as a second semester freshman. I picked up 16 credits, English, history, social studies, math, and it's not AP. You take the examination, so it's a one-time thing. You get the credits, but you cannot do that if you have taken any college courses ever. That's my understanding. That certainly was when I was the case. I don't think that it's changed. And are students who do this aware that they cannot do that? Because doing this, you're actually going to class. The time part is something that is not involved in CLEP. CLEP, I'm getting 16 credits for a day of tests. They are taking credits, they're getting the credits, but they're doing the whole full-blown thing. So my question is do parents and students know that they are prohibited from doing that once they go this route?
Yeah, so our counselors meet with the students and the parents to walk through all their various options and all of the things that they have to do. So as you see, part of the application is that parents and students have to sign and agree to that. And so that's been after a meeting with their counselors where they've walked through all of that. CLEP isn't something that we see really students taking part in, but it is, if it happens to be at the university that a student would be interested in, that would be something that counselors would connect with the parents and students about.
No, Danielle, it's not through the college, a specific college. I would strongly advise that you put on these applications a notice that, and they can go and then look at the program themselves. The rest of my family did not know about this, so I informed them. It's not well known, and it's an incredibly powerful tool.
Okay.
So the rest of my family went through and they had all these gaps and beautiful holes because all of their core courses were completed through CLEP. Once they start down this path of having enrolled and attended even 2 months, they can no longer do that. That's a massive option that is gone. And I think we want to be I would advise we be a little more proactive on that. And not
certainly
just
pass that along to our counselors. so
assume
they're aware
that
of it.
people are going to know about it and somebody will say, put it on the application. If you do this, you cannot take part in CLEP and then link it to the website or something because it's a serious loss. Thank you.
Yeah, I see it looks like it's through the college board.
Yeah, I can certainly make
It
sure
is.
that our counselors have that and are aware of that. Thank you.
Danielle, question for you. In terms of your cover memo and then the actual applications themselves, I noticed that there's like two students that have courses potentially at Carroll University. Two of them are like 4-credit courses, another one's a 2-credit course. But the cost estimate that you put in there was like $2,400. Can you kind of explain how that works? And obviously the rest of them are different prices, but
Yeah.
the $2,400 is what?
Yeah, I mean, so again, students by state statute have the choice as to where they want to apply. And so these students chose courses at Carroll. Our counselors do their best to give them all of the alternatives for whatever their interest is. John can speak a little bit to the reimbursement on the private schools that we see on the invoice side of things when that comes through, which does at least adjust the cost a little bit. But it is more expensive for private universities.
One of the components you have in your memo there shows the cost structure, and even the private schools are limited to 1/3 of the cost of the credits that are taught at the UW system.
Yeah, because there was like a document that compared the early college now and the other private. But so that 1/3 would be the equivalent of the $2,440, right? And again, because it was one that was a 2-credit course, the other ones were 4-credit courses, but the max looks like it was $2,440. And that the district would pay then for that student.
Move to approve these applications?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, personnel issues, we have no resignations, employments, or leave of absence at this time.
Quiet night on personnel.
Yeah, that's
Yay.
great, yay. Board goals and operations, upcoming events. Well, tomorrow night is the WASB regional meeting. Larry, myself, Jane, Jeannie, and Ashley are all registered to attend. So we're looking forward to that.
And I'll be there as well.
And Mike as well. Beyond that, it's really board meetings. It's Monday, October 23rd, November 6th, and November 20th. You know, it's just really 3 heavy lift board meetings ahead of us, right, in the next 6 weeks here. But, you know, it's just, you know, when you get those board packets, just hunker down for the weekend and do your due diligence, and we'll make it through. Awesome. Let's see, legislative update. Anything, Mike?
Yeah, just that John and I met with Representative Nayland today. He's always very generous with his time with us. We really appreciate that. Good conversation. We really, the agenda, first part of the agenda, we talked about the impact on the district of recent legislation, in particular the biennium budget bill. We spoke to, you know, for districts in particular that weren't beneficiaries of the low revenue limit raise, like ours, are in a little bit more of a difficult spot. We talked about a structural deficit that we're facing as a result. So good conversation there. We know that there's some additional negotiations to happen to the extent that they're fruitful between the governor and the legislature, because I know there's strong desire on the part of the legislature in particular to provide a tax cut to the public, and of course, there's interest on the governor's side to get some other things funded. So we did offer some suggestions that would help. In particular, we emphasized that it would be very helpful to all school districts in the state if they would increase the reimbursement for special education, which was only at 33% in the last biennium. So that was something that he thought was an interesting idea, and was going to take that back to his caucus. Good conversations. One thing that's very interesting is he's on the speaker's task force for artificial intelligence. We had a good conversation about that. Talked to him about how involved Danielle is with that, you know, in education. Right now, he's very focused on things like election security and those kinds of things related to AI. But he said those conversations are coming, and he thought he may very well invite us to come speak to our legislators on that topic. Anything else, John, that in particular that we covered?
And just updating him on the survey information and that also that we had tonight, but.
Yeah, we're making him aware of current things, and he's a parent in the district, so he's pretty aware of those kinds of things. But good conversation with him today, so.
Okay. Citizen comments. Julie, do we have any? Wonderful. Then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. You're adjourned.